Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Focus on Liberia on the Marketplace, where we talk everything finance and economics. I am your co-host today, and I'm your host today, and I have my co-host with me, Alex Coffee. Today, our topic would be, we want to look at it from the economic lens of the post-sanction firing of those three individuals who were, accused of corruption. And we also want to look at the implication of the airport debacle. So this is what we want to talk about today. As always, we have about an hour and a half. Join us wherever you are. Take an hour and 30 minutes. Share it first. I'll ask you to share the show wherever you are, whether you're in Liberia or here in the States or wherever you're watching from. Just share it and bring your questions, and we look forward to having a great discussion. But thank you for joining us. And Alex, welcome.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Gabriel, thank you. Thank you. And yes, we will be discussing the economic lens of the post-sanction firing and the RRA debacle, especially whether it's a threat or whether it's something that they're going to put into action. That by SN Russell about suspending flights. But I also hear that there has been a reverse. They might be starting flight tomorrow. I mean, they might continue the flight from tomorrow. So, but we will discuss the implication of those actions.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. But before we get into that, I think we have a great what I call. I kind of struggle with saying that word. Tabata. Tabata, right?
Tabata.
Tabata. Okay, I kind of struggle with saying it. So we have a great tabata today, and I think we should just maybe shed a little bit of light on it. I would like to hear your thoughts about it. I have my reservation, and that being the recent video that's been circulating about some clandestine happenings in Grand Jita and how that could spiral out of control. From what I've seen on social media, lots of people are saying the video is fake. It was doctored or it was orchestrated by someone else. So what do you think? What do you think about the video? And have you seen the video first of all? And if you have, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to the video. I've seen a lot of the comments on Facebook and in chat rooms and things like that. But my initial impression about the video
Hmm.
is that there are some information in the video that seems to be facts,
Hmm.
right? But I think that the video either was choreographed
Yeah,
or it was orchestrated by somebody. So it's
yeah,
like you're taking information, and Anthony did a great job today
right,
on an earlier Focus on Liberia show
right.
by kind of demonstrating a software that people use mostly sometimes in business, right? If
Hmm.
I have a business, I want to advertise my business, I can use that software to write about my business, and that software can project right with
Right.
pictures and stuff like that. So those things can be done.
Hmm.
So if you look at the video, you will see that if people giving news, they will
Hmm.
first of all state the source, right? This is Focus on Liberia, blah 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 blah,
Right.
right? They will state that, but that was absent. And then you're talking about this should be an international news outlet.
Hmm.
Some of the nuances, some of the little details, those people don't have those details. They don't go to those details, right? So that's the third point. Then the last point that crowned the whole thing was the fact that he said, "God bless Liberia." I mean, no international journalist in the newscast does that.
Yeah.
So while it is true that somebody may be trying to bring out some information which may be true, which may
Right.
be factual,
Right.
but the methodology, the
In
medium
which,
used kind of killed the whole thing. So it's like,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, at least
Wherever there's
people
smoke.
have that kind of information.
Mm.
Because you know what? I watched another video
Mm.
where I think it's Kai Fale, who is the
Mm.
superintendent, if I'm correct, he ordered the search of the building, the Doe Samuel Canyon Doe's abandoned unfinished residence in Grand Jide. I saw that video.
Oh wow.
So obviously, for the guy to call such an action search and play it and record it and post it on social media means that it attracted some attention.
Now, do you think that could this video that we're talking about could have been derived from that? The fact that that happened, they could have say, let's capitalize on it, and whoever put that video out to say, let's capitalize on that information and
It's
and
possible.
do something
It's
similar.
possible.
Yeah.
Because I don't know the date of either of the videos,
None
right?
of that even
Yeah, I
showed
don't know
up
the
on the
date of the. I just saw the newscast video yesterday.
mhm.
I've been seeing it since yesterday, and I saw the search of the building in Grand Jide
Right,
today. But I
right.
don't know which video was first. And it's
Yeah.
also possible that it could be even operatives from
Anyway.
within the government,
You're right.
from outside the government.
All
It
right.
could be from anywhere.
All right.
Yeah.
So I saw it initially. I felt the same way. I still do too. I think it was, I think somebody, put that out, and they didn't do a good job. Usually, if you're doing things like that, like you said, that you want to quote some sources, the date, I heard it from such and such, but none of that happened, right? But nevertheless, there are, I think that this kind of uh thing we have where we just dismiss everything as if, hey, that is fake news or whatever it is. It could, like you said, you alluded to some of that. It could be something orchestrated from either the current government, it could be from opposition, it could be from anybody. There's a motive behind it, obviously, right? And when I saw it, it reminded me of a incident that happened in Liberia. Well, not just incident. There were, if you, I know you guys have more connections in Liberia than I do. So in 2021, last year, I was in Liberia about September.
Hmm.
There was rumors, and there's just rumors. So anytime I travel, I go anywhere, I like to run in the morning, like 5 o'clock or 5:30. I would get up, go for a run before I start my day. So I used to do that. When I went, I stayed right by to a friend house, right by he lives like right on the same road where they have the Falkland Corn Church, right
Hmm.
behind it. I think it's called Baptist Seminary. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah,
And
is that the one on the opposite side of the Falkland Road?
no, the
On the opposite.
road that is right by it, like you will walk all the way back, and the Falkland Corn Church is it's right on
Okay,
the
then
side. Like
that's another church. It's not the Baptist Seminary.
you're right. So I w- I would get up early in the morning, go for a run, and like usually I will jog all the way to the main road, to the one that goes to the airport.
Hmm.
So on my way back, I saw this lady who was waiting for, I think she was waiting for a car or taxi or whatever to go in town. She got scared. So I
Hmm.
stopped, talked to her. She said, "Oh, my son, you shouldn't be running this late. I mean, this early in the morning. This dangerous here." So I stopped and started talking to her. And she mentioned something that I started hearing from other people, that there are these group of people that were training. They were in the military. Like they would get up in the morning and just like they had this military regalia on them, training. So she mentioned something like that. And what the rumors that they were saying is that there were people, they were related to the government and this and that. They were, some kind of uh, off the radar unit of the government or whatever it is. But a lot of people were saying that, but I never bought into it. I would get up in the morning, go for my run, get up in the morning, go for my run. So when she said that, I got afraid. I stopped running. So when I saw this video, I started thinking about that, but that died down. Nobody ever mentioned anything about that anymore. That died down. We stopped hearing rumors like that. So when I saw this video, that's what my mind ran back to, that, hey, maybe this guy actually grew into something bigger. But then if you look at the video itself, there's no dates. Like you said, the guy said, this is somebody who's not doesn't look Liberian, and I could be wrong, saying that God bless, Liberia, and all these other, detail that he gave that could, that just gave the video away of it being fake. So, you know, initially I was kind of, you know, feeding into it. But then you go back, you keep watching the video, you see that was something that was, that's something that was orchestrated by, somebody who has a motive, who knows what they want to do with it. Like I said, it could be from anybody. So
Yes, I
that's
mean
how I feel about it.
it's possible that somebody is trying to get some information out there. It's possible, and it's just that um, it could be any. I mean, if I know people are trying to say is opposition folks is but I think if it was the opposition folk, they will be more sophisticated than that. I think it's
Thank
somebody
you.
who's
You're right.
trying to get something out there. It could be an individual effort.
Mm,
Yeah, right. Somebody who's trying to get something out there and it goes viral. I mean, such a video will obviously go viral. So in the
yeah.
one viral. So again, it could
I
be
would say this
somebody who's
before
trying to save somebody that's trying to save the day by putting some information out there.
I would say this before we jump into the topic of the day.
Hmm.
Those things can be easily tracked. You can go to the video, go to the source and see who posted that video. It's on YouTube,
Right.
right? If you want to do your investigation, you can go there, go to the source and see who posted that video, who owns that channel, and you can go to YouTube and ask them about, details about the information. Even if you're from the government, you can do that. Hey, we're trying to investigate this such and such video, and really do your due diligence. And to the point, if it whatever computer it was posted from, they will give you the IP address of that video of that computer, and you will
No,
be able to.
IT people can easily find that.
That's
Investigators
what
can
I'm saying.
easily find
Let's
it.
let somebody do investigation,
I mean,
journalism.
I can follow you, Gabriel, and know where you step and where you pass, and I can follow your track.
You try that, I'll be something different.
So I mean, those things are easily discovered. So I mean, a
Right.
video, you can know which computer it was even generated from.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
and the date it
Right.
was generated. So
So somebody, there you go. Somebody
mhm.
do your work and suppose whoever it was. All right. With that being said, we have a long list of, I kind of wrote down the question that you actually wanted to look at, in terms of What should we talk about first? Should we talk about the sanction or
So,
should we talk about?
so the U.S. government recently issued something, kleptomaniac, whatever it was, asking people to provide information that leading to where corruption money is, what people have done with corruption money, and things like that. So um, I don't. That is a general thing by the U.S. Treasury based on law. U.S. government is trying to protect its interests, its security interest, its financial interest,
Hmm.
and things like that. Because you know that a lot of countries, vulnerable countries, are susceptible to terrorism and and having terrorist cell, knowing it or unknown to themselves. So the U.S. government, by all these different laws, the Magnitsky, the Global Magnitsky Act,
Hmm.
the Anti-Money Laundering Act, the Patriot Act, all these different laws, the Currency Protection Act that is administered by the Office of the Control of the Currency. You know that the U.S. currency belongs to the U.S., so any transaction that goes on that is done through the financial system is tracked through the Fed and through different systems. The same way in Liberia, the Central Bank of Liberia has a system that tracks movement of money throughout the banking system,
Hmm.
through the formal banking system. So, so to protect their currency, to protect their financial interest, to protect their economic interest or the security interest,
Hmm.
they're issuing all these different things, and their law give them the power to do that. I mean, if you're a U.S. citizen, that's a different ball game. But this one is for people who are not U.S. Persons. All right.
Hmm.
So that is why they're putting it out there. So if you have any information, you can call their lines and provide that information that will lead to investigating a situation, right? When they say interagency investigation, when the U.S. mentioned in their sanction, they say after interagency, investigation. The reason is because they have different agencies for different things, right?
Hmm.
So, like they have the OFAC. The OFAC is the Office of the Foreign Asset Control.
Hmm.
Foreign. OCC is the Office of the Controller of the Currency. It controls the currency. It receives large currency transactions, right? Anything above $10,000 that is transacted into the system is lodged with them. So they follow that to know the movement of money, large cash transaction. You have the FinCEN, the financial, financial investigation network, which is the FIU of the United States of America,
Right.
also tracks suspicious activity report that is reported to them from different banks throughout the country. Um, so, and then you have the FBI, then you have the law enforcement, right?
Hmm.
You have the Federal Reserve that also conduct its own examinations and things like that. So it's a whole, when they say interagency, FBI can work with the FinCEN, FBI can work with OCC, the Office of the Controller of the Currency, FBI can work with OFAC, the Office of Foreign Asset Control, to kind of investigate, because FBI and other agencies, law enforcement agencies, are the investigating arm. The
Right.
other agencies just compile the information, make sense of the information, and if they feel that it warrant real investigation, then they pass that information to the FBI. And if FBI feels that it's something that will go to court, then they link that information over the Department of Justice to begin prosecution, right, to the
Mm.
courts. So that is it. So this particular pronouncement is almost like a whistleblower situation, where if you have information regarding corruption in your country,
Mm.
in this case, it can be any country, but in this case, Liberia. So
Hmm.
if you have information leading, but that is completely different from what the sanction thing, because the sanction thing was based on information that was already gathered. right?
That's what I was right. All right.
Yeah, the sanction that was issued, it was based on, don't get it wrong here. Don't get it that, oh, they are now trying to corroborate their information. No,
Mhm.
this is something different, right?
Yeah.
That if you have, this is something outstanding that that was that is started recently. So the sanction thing that was issued, it was based on already gathered information, right?
Mhm.
Based on that interagency investigation, based on that they issue the sanctions. So there may be other sanctions, but that will also be based on information they gathered. So this one now is going forward. If you have any information on any situation, it doesn't have to be information that prosecutes somebody. Once it's
Like a tip.
suspicion,
Right.
yeah, once it's suspicion that warrant their attention to start an investigation or to start analyzing that information,
Mhm.
right? But it's not like, okay, I just pick up a phone and call. I say, oh, Gabriel stole money. No, you must be able to expand.
Mhm.
If you have documentation, you can give that. If it's on lender asset, if it's buildings, if it's land, if whatever it is, if you have receipts. For example, if you transacted business with somebody and you figure that this business um, was as a result of stolen money from that person, if
Mhm.
somebody pay you 300,000 or 400,000 for some property, and you feel that, but this guy not supposed to be, he's supposed to be making 5,000 every month. Where he got
Right.
this money?
Exactly.
And if you feel that you want to report that, you can report that. And if
Right.
you want to take some pictures, you can take some pictures and send that info. And then they will do the investigation. They said they will give you some. There's a reward, and also what they do very well is they protect whistleblowers.
Mhm.
Yeah, they don't give the whistleblowers out. Um, so that is something going forward.
Okay. So so initially when I heard that, I thought maybe this was, you know, them trying to get information out there from people regarding those three individuals who were initially sanctioned. But I'm glad you actually made that clarification that this is beyond that. This is going forward. Like they just practically just created like a tip line. If you have suspicion of somebody being corrupt, that you can call and they will pick up the investigation from there. So, thank you for making that clarification. But going into I think we have some clarity or some relief of these three individual, resigning or being fired, if you want to call it that. Um, do you think the next step in this process should be an investigation? Does it warrant an investigation? And if so, should we demand that? When I mean we, should the Liberian people demand an investigation to go after the assets of uh of those three people who were, you know, who were sanctioned? Because I think the reason why I'm leaning in line with it, not leaning in line, I would demand that as well, is because there's huge for a country that small, there's huge sum of money that are that were implicated in the sanction report. So I think if this government wants to be serious, they need to do some form of investigation to try to retrieve some of that money that these guys have hidden in various places. Now, do you think that is something you support as well?
Well, let me tell you this, right? Okay, so let's go back to what's his name? The guy who had a situation with in the U.S., right? Who was subject to investigation, and the Treasury, and then recently the
Hush puppy? No.
yes, no, the
No.
Liberian guy
Oh,
who was
what is
frozen
it?
by
Conti
Conte.
or what?
Conte,
Yeah,
yeah.
Conte. Right.
So Conte had a situation in the U.S. Of
Right.
course, the U.S. Through review of bank account activities. you work in the bank, so you should have some information through money laundering reviews, which is instituted in all banks in the U.S. and all banks around the world. This
Yep.
is a worldwide phenomenon. This is a worldwide fight to protect the banking system or the financial system, if you may.
Right.
So as part of that, you will also know that most of the things that came out with the PEP, right, the payroll protection
Program. Right.
abuses and stuff like that. Most of those things start. I remember doing a contract on with a bank on that, just working on possible misuse of the PP funds.
Mm.
So this process is an ongoing daily process where banks have FIU within their banks where they look at
Mhm.
sanctions, they look at detecting money laundering situation, investigation, and then if it warrants escalation to law enforcement, they do. Right, there's a
Mhm.
whole process. So it was as a result of that process that Conte's situation was discovered and
Mhm.
it was passed on. And then once the investigators, the FBI or whoever investigates, Department of Justice, pick it up, they
Let's.
expand it, they
Yeah.
call for more information. If it's a cross-border situation in other countries, they do legal mutual assistance, there are networks to share information and things like
Mhm.
that. So now, when they brought charges against Kante, um, the FIU of Liberia picked that up, right? You remember when the FIU froze the Kante's account
Yeah.
in, so the FIU considered it. I listened to the FIU director on BBC that it gathered the information from, from open source.
Mhm.
Well, I know that there's this collaboration between the Treasury and the FIU, which is a standing government approved program between that. So the FIU and the can collaborate with the Treasury can collaborate with the FIU. So I'm sure it was based on that, but again, you can consider as open source because the FIU can take information from newspapers, the FIU can take information from your behavior pattern
Right.
and things like that and start an investigation. So the FIU used that information to freeze Kante's account. Of
Account.
course, that freezing has to be done through the courts, right?
Mhm.
It's a legal thing. There are laws surrounding that in Liberia. So based on the court, uh, first of all, the rule is that you can once you write the freezing order, the lawyer write the freezing order, it's lodged with the court. Once it's lodged with the court, you can use that to order the freezing, but that will be temporary.
Mhm.
According to the law, you have 7 days to hear, where we call a due process.
Due
The
process.
judge
Right.
has 7 days to hear that case, and within 7 days, the judge can, agree that yes, the thing can be sanctioned, or can overturn that temporary sanction. So in Liberia, the point I'm driving at is if that was done
Mhm.
with Kante, it can also be done
To
with
anybody. Right.
these officials.
Right.
Because once the OFAC determines that a person is put on sanction,
Yeah.
it's a requirement by all banks because
Thank you.
it's what we call a high risk. That
Yep.
customer, if you have an account with that customer, that person is automatically a high risk.
Yep.
There are indicators that make a customer high risk.
Yep.
So that customer, um, okay, I wanted to say
Don't
something,
get too
but
much.
I
There's a
gotta,
limit to Bank Secrecy Act. Please
yeah,
don't go
yeah,
overboard. I wouldn't want you to get in
yeah,
trouble.
because
Right.
I mean, at where I work, in my work, I also, part of a sanction group. So when
Right.
sanctions come and we receive all these news, so you're reading some of the cycler, and then bam, you see your own country on that cycler. So, yeah, you see on that wire, why? Yeah, you see that hell on that wire. And, oh my God. I mean, you feel a little embarrassed because
Excuse, I just thought about like somebody standing over here. You're reading a thing, you check, and somebody asking, "What happened to you?" I mean, Alex, he said, "No,
no, it's
that,
not why everybody sees it. Everybody does, we see the
no." I
information,
I, I
see
agree.
that stuff.
I asked that question because I think what we talk about here is we tend to just look at things from an economics lens, and I think the quantum of money that were implicated in the sanction report among all of those three individuals, that's a lot of money for a country that size, Liberia. I mean, if you like you said, you work in a bank, to you, like probably like chump change of kind of money you see, you handle. But for a country our size, that is huge sum of money that could do, a lot of things in a country. Here we are, right? So in as much that I think these guys resign, I think it is incumbent upon the president or whoever. The Senate should be demanding this. The House should be demanding this. Like, hey, investigate these individuals, and if any of them are found guilty or to be corrupt for of some of this money, then let them bear the full weight of the law. I think that should be the next step that we demand. We should not just say, hey, they resign. That's it. I think it was Miguel that declared his assets online after he got sanctioned. He came and posted stuff. So honestly, I think this is the next step that we should be seeking. This
No,
is
he
this is
didn't
something
post.
that we should be seeking. When I mean
Mhm.
I mean the Liberian people collectively. This is not something we need to be passive about anymore. We've been passive about everything else. We would just make noise and be quiet about it. These three individuals, let's stay on top of them to make sure that they get investigated, their assets are frozen if they haven't been frozen already, and they can reimburse the state for all the fund that they've stolen. This is something that I think should be the next step that we would pursue as a country, as a people.
No, but on the positive side, Gabriel, they should be investigated. To There should be an investigation, right?
Right.
So that if they did nothing wrong, right? So it clears their name because in such investigation, I believe that such investigation will be in Liberia will be an interagency investigation. At least the LACC, the FIU, and the police, National Police Investigation Unit, Economic Crime
Hmm.
Investigation Unit, could do a joint. Um, um, the reason the FIU could even lead that, but in this case, it will be the LACC that will lead that, and the FIU will provide support because the FIU has a longer and a deeper reach than the LACC or the police. Yeah, in terms of gathering financial data, right?
Intelligence. Right.
Yeah. So there should be I think George Weah should have ordered a formal investigation, and that could help to clear their name if nothing is done wrong. In that, the reason why the FIU is important, the FIU can also collaborate with the U.S. Treasury and
Hmm.
exchange some information and investigate. If they are found wanting, then yes, the proper thing will be done. The asset will be frozen. They will go to court, and if they are found guilty, those assets that is gained from that corruption money or that criminal money would be confiscated back to the state, right?
Hmm.
Because it's state money, and that's a big investigation that should be called for, especially now that they have resigned. I'm sure that that resignation it was hot water down the throat. It's to me. I think it was an option of you got to do it, or so Bosman didn't have no choice but to ask you to resign. If you don't resign today, I will take the necessary action
So you
tomorrow.
don't think it was done from a moral standpoint, but something that to just image
Yeah,
out?
I believe that the pressure would came to
Yeah.
bear on that. But that was the right thing to do in the first place
Right.
for for George. We had to ask them to resign in the first. That was, you remember when we had this conversation
Right.
before
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
before he even suspended. That's what I said, that
Right.
in this case, either I would resign, or um, the Judge Ria will pressurize me to resign.
Hmm.
And that's the logical thing to do. And then an investigation be called so that you can clear your name, or the state can, hook you. But but
Hmm.
how do I do that when there's it creates a situation that we've been hearing all these different news about people being involved in this, and people acquiring properties overnight, and people building stuff. So there's this general sense of corruption that's going on. So uh, the boss man does not have the wherewithal, the political will to do these things, because for all you care, if your chief of staff is being wanting in this situation, then it points a negative situation on the country. It points a negative situation on the office as well. So um, again, it's a willpower thing. I mean, it's a willpower thing to call for such an investigation to clear, especially the name of the country, because this brings huge reputational risk on the country.
Hmm.
I am unsatisfied, anti-money laundering especially. I belong to the group we call ACAMS, Association Certified, and you know, this information is on the wire. It's on the ACAMS wire. It's on the Edmond wire. And all the banks receive these advisory, and it's all over the place. So for a high official to be, in this kind of, quagmire, it tells on the country, right?
Hmm.
It creates it heightens the red flag, even on the country's transaction as well, for a high, official as high as somebody, who is, you know, um, chief of staff to the office, it's tough. So I can tell you this information is all over the place. It's all in the wire. It's all in the international wire.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
OFAC wires, it's in the ATEMS wire, it's in the ECMO wire, it's in all the bank wires, all over the place.
Everywhere. You're right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and banks have taken action. Like, I know of a situation where, even though they don't have an account with them, but the bank has placed the names already on that high, like, just in case there will be a international transfer or something like that, so it can pop up.
Hmm.
So it's red flag. It's not good for the country.
So here, this is in as bad as this situation is, right?
Hmm.
There's an opportunity here for this administration. You know why? If this, I think this, if this guy is serious, if he really is serious, I hate to put this out there, but if he's, when I mean this guy, the current president or this administration, I think the same thing happened to the former administration as well. They had the opportunity to make an example out of few people that could have set the tone for the rest of their administration, their term in office. But that didn't happen. They missed that boat. People got reshuffled. You steal from here. They took them from one place and they put them in somewhere else. However, with this current issue that is at hand, this sanction, I think this president has an opportunity here, and that opportunity being, if he pursue the investigation, and if these people are found guilty, the persecution of them. Why? Because it will send a wave, within that government, that if you're caught being corrupt, in as much that we think this was watered down, them resigning was watered down, if he pursues this to the fullest, it could send a message that could curtail, I mean, not inflation, corruption, right? For whatever length, whatever amount of time he has left in the office, you know. But if he just let this thing slides, just forgets about it, just because these guys got, they resign,
Gabriel, wait,
just
wait.
let them
Which plan are you speaking from? Are you speaking from Utopia or something?
go. Listen, I in as much as I like to be pessimist, I like to be an optimist as well, right? I
Oh
like to
yeah,
balance
be there.
things
That's,
out.
that's why I'm asking whether you're sitting in Utopia right now. But
There-
speak.
there's an opportunity here. Like, and if I were him, that's what I would do. Like, just to send a message across the board that, hey, I may have not been seen as this guy who fights corruption or who people around me steals, but here's one thing I made an example out of, and that goes, and I would do that and make a statement that goes to everybody. If you're found in the, so there's an opportunity here. Long story short, there's an opportunity here, and I hope that he capitalizes on it, right? Unlike the previous administration that had these series of opportunity and nothing happened. They didn't do that. People got reshuffled. You stole from here. I would take it from this place. He has an opportunity here to do that and capitalize on this and do something good out of it. So I would leave it on that note. Right.
Yeah, I don't want to go into matching others to compare the previous administration to this administration because at least in the previous administration, in as much as there were, in as much as the madam admitted that she didn't do well on corruption and she didn't do well on reconciliation, um, but there was some visible action taken with some people, the NPA, with different, and a few different situations, right? The end result of these corruption prosecution, it has to end in a guilty verdict, and then it leads to confiscation. That's the end result of everything. It leads to confiscation. All right. You can put the person in jail according to the law. You can fine the person according to the law, but also the piece of confiscating the property that it was gained from the illegal money or the corruption money has to be done. That has not been done in any of the administration. But I think, you know, this administration has, there are things, there are a lot of investigations that have gone on that ended up nowhere, right? So when you're talking about opportunity, you're right. There has been a lot of opportunities for this government to show that they're serious about fighting corruption,
Hmm.
right? And those opportunities have been missed. Some of them led to what this quote unquote the suspicion that people were killed on based on things like that, and even now, like you're saying now, this is a this is a this is an opportunity. To me, the first opportunity the government had was the investigation on the 16 billion and the 25 million. That was the first opportunity that the nation had, the government had, to make a point. But that opportunity was missed. And when you have all these things going on, and you have this current opportunity where it's a worldwide, again, it's
Hmm.
a worldwide situation, it's OFAC sanction to a very key government official. I mean, at least two key, because the Solicitor General position is not a small potato. It's
Right.
not a small position. So, two very key. Yeah, the Freeport is a state-owned enterprise. Yeah, yeah, but when you talk about on the scale of severity of the position, the
Hmm.
Minister of State, because the Minister of State is closer to the president,
Right.
so the president,
President.
you should have an eye on. There's something going on. So one can say that what affect the president affect the Minister of State, or what
Hmm.
affect the Minister of State affect the
Vice
president.
versa. Yeah.
Less that the guy who controls the law. I mean, sort of
Hmm.
who is the who is the chief prosecutor. I mean, the Minister of Justice is the chief prosecutor, but this guy is next to line to the Minister of Justice in
Hmm.
terms of law. And then before you come to the guy from the Freeport, I'm not belittling the guy from the Freeport, but that's one of our economic hub, right?
That's what I was going
In
to
the
say.
entire
Right.
country. So you would imagine why the U.S. even decided to use those three guys first, right?
Right.
So it's an opportunity now that is an international concern that we could make good in this one. If I was in his shoe, I would throw them on the bus for the
But
sake of the country.
but
But
that's
but
what everybody expect. And I know what you. I think I was about to say the same thing, but I'll let you say it. Go ahead.
I would throw them on the bus.
Right. Right.
But What it says there?
Throw your rope, Paul
You
Bush.
throw rope, you pull rope, rope pull butch.
Exactly, exactly. So there's a lot at play there that and even though I keep saying there's an opportunity here, I don't think he will pursue it, or just based on that on that premise that there's he's too entangled in that, and if you throw them under the bus, they too would throw him under the train, not just the bus. They will push him on the train
On
track,
the train. Ooh.
and get ran over. Yeah. So
The train
um
is a deadly killer.
exactly.
And
All
I,
right.
and
So one more question, and then on this thing, and then we can dive into the airport.
mhm,
So I think you alluded to that, right? These people are very. I don't know if I should have even asked this question because I think you talked about it in length a little bit. These three guys are very important to the question. I mean, to the president and the country. Now that they are gone, that is a gaping hole, right? Like this gaping hole that is left
mhm.
void of, like you said, the Solicitor General, the guy at the port, and Minister of State, right? How, what do you think this president needs to do, you know, to because if you want, if I want to use the analogy of a ship, right, where the assistant captain is out, you know, the guy who oversees the engine at the bottom is out, right? The guy who controls the navigation to see ahead, to see what's ahead of you is out, which is the hub to the economic entrance to the country is out. What do you do as a president? What do you think this president need to do, or this administration need to do right now, to you can look at it from an economic perspective to say, hey, to kind of ameliorate the effect, and maybe to the end of this his term, or to make sure that he set the tune to go on to the next term. Like, what do you think he needs to do right now?
Hey, I'll put a Eugene. I'll put a Eugene one on you. That means to put to tear him.
I knew that was coming, but
I'll put a Eugene
that means
one.
supposed to that means supposed to tell them what to do.
That means support to.
Why they eating chicken? Anyways, go ahead.
Why you eating chicken in the U.S.?
Lobster.
Eating love fried chicken in the U.S. That was so funny. That is support to. But I think it comes to my mind. The guy is in the U.S., right? He left yesterday to the U.S. to attend the UNGA, the United Nations General Assembly. All right, and I can imagine. I also understand that there were attempts to. I think, according to the letter from the I read on the wire from the social media from the U.S. I mean, the Liberian embassy in the U.S. I think that probably should be meeting with the on the sideline, should be meeting with the congressional Black Congressional Caucus, the guys that visited Liberia
Mhm.
a few months ago, and there were attempts also to meet with Kamala Harris, the Vice President for the U.S. I don't know how far that went, but I can imagine the kind of your officials on sanction and the kind of way people will be looking at you. I mean,
Mm,
George is a
I see.
star, is a rising star. Everybody wants to be his president because of his football,
That's it.
not necessarily because of his presidency, but because of his football stardom, and everybody, who want to be in his company, at least. But I can imagine how people will look at him, and maybe the kind of mouth latches he's going to get. I don't want to be in the spot that he's in, but again, it's because by this time, right? The guy should have, they already resigned. It took some time for them to resign.
Mhm.
By this time, he should have made a sounding. action by, calling for investigation. By this
Bravo,
time, he should have
bravo.
replaced them with, he should have begin the process
Right.
of bringing in some serious boots, new people, from the team A, because what he has on the field there is a team F and a team G and a team H elements of that team. I think now, as a let me put it in the football scenario, as a coach, I think now that you're going to play in the Serie A, or you're going to play in the crack
Bundesliga.
league,
Yeah.
and you take your team G or team H elements of that. I think now he should go start seeking people from his team A, team B, and team C
Mm,
to start bringing them. So by now, he should have filled up those positions by elements from the team A, B, or C, right?
mm,
So if he had done those things, at least he would have created this thing. But all this little so-called dependency and we're going to have that discussion next week on this IMF posture, and
mm,
one moment is 5% growth, another moment it downgraded to 3% growth. Prices are staying high, economic situation is staying difficult for the people, and yet we're saying there's 3% growth. These are all projection,
exactly.
So what is it going to come with? What is it going to come to? In and all these people have gotten all this information already. So it's a tough thing. I think by now he should have taken this action. If he hasn't taken this action, if he goes back, I think he should be taking this kind of action. But now, in fact, to the extent where he should be because he should be able to in fact, and Ellen did it before. She called for the resignation on the sacking of her entire cabinet. You know,
So you would recommend something like that?
he should
No,
make
I
some
think
radical. He should start with radical changes. If he's not
something
starting from
radical.
and the memes I'm hearing that the possible replacement of the minister of state, it's the same, 6 and 7 book of Moses, as I would call it. It's the same 6 and 7 book of Moses,
Ay, ay, ay.
as I would call it. So it gives you no comfort. Like, okay, the guy is trying now, or at least, in the face of elections coming, in the face of all these different things, I mean, he's making some effort. But all these shadow things, you go big market, you say the market at 3 million, and the people say the people, tolerating the market, the people not selling the market, the people on the street. Then why do we spend our money? Whether that 3 million was justified in putting it
Mm,
into the market, you're building road, which is a good thing, but then it becomes a debt trap. Eventually you
right.
pull out of that, but it's you know we mean well for our country. And that's why we continue to come on these podcasts to talk, not to bottom of our country,
Mm,
but to see, to bring these issues out so that authorities can listen to these things and take some action.
right.
Oh my man, let's talk.
Yeah.
Let's
So
do this.
let's that I think that I think let's dive into the second topic of the day, which is the SN Brussels
Well, do we do
debacle.
we do we have some questions or comments that are out there
Yeah,
that we could
yeah.
bring
Let's
in?
maybe we should do that and then we dive right into it.
Okay.
I think we have a lot here. Yeah, Vamos, vamos, vamos. All right. So where do we start here? This is for this is Ruben. Uh, Ruben said, "What is the WIA administration plan uh, post fire post firing the three stooges?" Is that from him or is that me? No, that's not him. That's me. All right. So Ruben says, "I'm watching." Okay, so he's watching. He's following along. This is Franklin LB. I can't say that last name. He said, "All right." He too is watching. Okay, all these people. Let me go to real comments. All right. So um uh this I think this person is calling us liar. He said here. Here say they say, man, liar, man. I think there's somebody else said the story is real. I won't buy into that. And Miata is back. Miata said we get all that he has done for his people. Huh? That's well and good, but if, as he claims, his business is involved in an alleged to be involved in an act of a criminal nature,
Does
does that reflect on him as a leader, owner of his of said business? So I think she's referring to um what's the guy who transferred 1.5 million to his recently formed company. That's the guy at the airport. I think that's
at the
uh,
seaport,
yeah, the
at the
seaport
the
airport, right?
NPA, as Bill Travel.
Yeah. So Miata again, she said we are asking, why are we asking someone who himself is under his investigation to render opinion? Um, I don't know what she's referring to on that one. So
I can sense what she's talking.
yeah. Okay. So Emmanuel Jackson, Emmanuel is he said very important to conduct the official business of any government within the parameters of transparency, accountability, and economic monetary management. All of these, uh, all of these whistleblower programs by the U.S. Treasury hasn't been seen against, huh? Liberia, only under Weir administration. Actually, he's right though. I don't want to say he's right. Do you recall any whistleblower program during any of the previous administration where there was corruption and they have set up a whistleblower line to
Not
be controlled?
it was these programs have always been there, but they were not heightened for Liberia under the Ellen administration. Ellen's administration suffered other things, right? Such as we were almost like blacklisted because of failure to put in effective anti-money laundering programs. Um, sometimes some of the transactions from some of our donor partners could not come in. I remember a time where even the embassy in the US and other places could not really transact. Their check was bouncing and things like that.
Jesus.
So there are some things that happen to Liberia, but not to the extent.
Mhm.
Some of the reason is that one, when Ellen started in her first 4 to 5 years, she started very well on a very good footing, right? She appointed a good girl, she started with good governance. She appointed some top-notch people into her government. She, I saw leadership. I was, then, recruited to go and serve on a GMAT in Liberia. So I worked directly with. So I saw leadership, right? And she did some of the right things. She answered to all if EU say jump, she said hi hi. If US say jump, she said hi hi. So she did all the right things.
Right.
But unfortunately, after that period, it started falling and it started falling. So then by the time the international community was getting concerned, then Ebola hit, right? So she was covered under that Ebola. Yeah, it's a plus and minus thing, but she was
Yeah.
covered under that,
She flew
right?
under the radar. Right.
Yeah, so it flew under the radar. Ebola was a good and bad thing, right?
Hmm.
Even though it hit the economy, but in terms of, because I know I was working, work for the GMAT before, and I will stay having, so there's some things that were going on. So,
Mhm.
and at the end of the day, the last State of the Union address she gave, the second to the last, the first to the last, she admitted that she didn't fight corruption. I mean, she didn't do well on corruption. I mean, that was own admittance, right?
Mhm.
So corruption started creeping in from the fifth year to the sixth year and going on, right? So
It started showing.
it started showing its ugly face,
Right.
right?
Right.
It started showing its ugly face at that point, and then you could see that some of the best and brightest were leaving the scene in terms of position, in serial position.
Right.
So And then sometimes too, um, there were crafted ways things were done.
Mhm.
Now, look how we are. And I wrote an article against an article that was written against, as a response to something that was written against Ria, right?
Mhm.
So, people were already not, people were already, losing confidence on the local scene in Ellen's administration, right? Towards the
Right.
end.
Mhm.
People were not, they were paranoid about Josh coming in,
Mhm.
right? In as much as they hailed Ellen because of some of the things she did from the beginning, and they still hail her on the international front,
Mhm.
on the domestic front, at the end of the day, she didn't do well.
No, at all.
So there was this apprehension towards it. Remember that there was donor fatigue towards the
Mhm.
end of Ellen's administration.
Mhm.
There was this apprehension; people were holding back.
Mhm.
But then on top of that, people were kind of apprehensive about George coming in,
Mhm.
right? And for different reasons, right? And that Peyton article that I responded to kind of sum it up,
Mhm.
right? Unfortunately, when George came in, he he didn't allay their fears. He kind of proved his critics and everybody else right. But first of all, not forming a very credible government. He formed a presiding government, a single funded government, and
Right.
then all these different things are happening with auditors being dying and the suspicion that they've been killed
Right.
and
Right.
investigators being chased out of the country and stuff like that. So different things was happening in the country that gave rise to the U.S. our most
International
development
partners. Right.
partner, our godfather, wanting to act right on them, because it's like one group people were doing the same thing, but they were doing it in a crafty and clever manner behind the scene. But another group of people came in, they're doing it all in the face of people. That's how it looks.
And
So, you know,
that statement you made, it's this reservation that most Liberians have back home, that corruption was there, right? And sometimes when I hear it, I get kind of taken aback. I kind of empathize with them in a way that, hey, they said corruption was here during Ellen time, but at least people, those people who were stealing, they were buying a lot of stuff, so things were moving. On the surface, everything looked good, right? But this administration, there is, like you said, they're all up in your face. They don't care that, you can't touch me. I'm untouchable kind of behavior, right? But my
but Gabriel, I'm not cutting you off. The boss man himself sent a wrong message. You become president elect and you start tearing down your properties, start building properties all over the place, start building condominiums. I mean, who does
right.
that?
So
Right?
what
Who
I'm
does that?
saying is that
That was a wrong
regardless,
move.
right, whether it's done craftily or ostentatious or in your face, boisterous, it's still corruption, and I think that goes. Hopefully, not hopefully. Next week, that's what we will talk about with this whole, growth that the
So
IMF
in
project.
the Liberian balance, they were already setting for Liberia towards the end of Ellen. But
Exactly.
our man, we are keen, instead of him, first of all, launching a massive audit against these people. They started out that asset recovery thing
It was
where CFOS was leading. That was a good mechanism, but they blew that. They blew that, right? That was a
right.
good mechanism that could have brought, previous government situation into the radar. And if they had only done that and followed that meticulously, we wouldn't have been where we are with all these sanctions and all these
But
targets.
they can't.
So,
But
Emmanuel Jackson, to answer your question, and that's the way I can answer your question.
right. To land what I was saying is that, in as much as what I was done craftily or boisterous, ostentatious in your face, is still corruption, right?
Mhm.
Now, the reason why I think could not have audited the previous administration, you saw this the breaking shoveling of him and Ellen to when she endorsed him. That was her buying protection. You can't buy protection for somebody and come in and, hey, unless you want to say I can be a Judas, a come and kiss you on your cheek, but I can be on the same table where you're eating and come and kiss you on your cheek and sell you off. That he could have done that. He could have taken that endorsement, gotten elected, and still investigate the previous administration. I would have done that, but he didn't do it. So, and nobody expected him to do it because she endorsed him. But that's another topic. Um, let's continue with the comment here before we get on to the. So this is Miata again. I think this lady is directing these questions at you. Is he is he a legal person and an expert in Liberian law? Um, and yet again, in the land of the blind, the one eyes, the one eyed man is really the one eye really believe
Gabriel,
in his twisted mind that he is king. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. What were you saying?
go ahead.
Oh, okay. So
Read a
Miata is busy.
read a comment.
All right. She
Read a
said,
comment in the chat.
uh, okay. All
Where
right.
did the money come from? From the Cassell has been using to render or the
Okay.
bit
So let's
between we
so
use. It
Miata
is
here
another bit
again,
of
she said, where
different.
did the money come from that Cassell has been using to render all the good he claimed he is? She's going back to this guy here. He got indicted. He's going through legal trouble. I don't know if you've been following the story. Miata, to answer your question, he's been indicted. There's some foul play into how he got his money.
Yeah, but so if we say if we if you want to answer the other question for once, you would say that yes, Cassell has already also been indicted, right, for wrongdoings in the U.S., right?
Hmm.
So when he came back to the U.S., his indictment was issued, and so in the same vein, Kante was already investigated and he was indicted. Um, that reflected in Liberia, and the FIU put a freeze on his property and has launched an investigation on Kante.
Hmm.
It's the same way that the U.S. has also put sanction on three government officials for a similar situation or for other situation as per the U.S. Own investigation. So, in as much as they could put, we agree that they could put Cassell, they could indict Cassell, they could indict Kante, they could put other people on sanction as well, and they could indict other people as well based on their laws.
Right.
So, to answer your question, Miata, that's what I would say.
Yeah. All right. I think Emmanuel Jackson has a question here for you. He said, Mr. Coffee, is it possible to privatize at, the navigational system of any airport in the world? Ah, I'll let you answer that before I make a statement
Yeah,
because I would
most
direct it to you.
yeah, airport business. A lot of things are privatized, if you may, right? So sometimes the airport situation is segmented. The privatization is segmented. For example, you have ground services can be different company, learning services, but according to Akio Ayata, is when it comes to the navigational system, it is the civil aviation a lot of the times that controls the navigational system. So the same way you have security, right? You could have private security over the place, but those security, the main security you have at the airport is a TSA, the Transportation Services Administration, which is a government entity. So because they want security to be centralized in a way, and all the everything goes because prevention of terrorism, and so they feel that the TSA people are more satisfied to conduct in an orderly manner. So it's but ground handling service, this other service, all those things that can be privatized. Now, when it comes to the tower, it's a yes and no thing, but most of the time the tower is controlled by the different civil aviation, because the the navigation system is something that directs the plane. All right. So as the plane leaves from the US, it is, for example, it is controlled by the US navigation system. When it gets into the international wire, another navigation system can pick it up. If it gets to Liberia, when it gets to what we call uh,
Liberal airspace.
yeah, this no the Robert Flight International Region airspace, which is the Manariwa Union airspace. The FIR picks it up, right? And then when it gets into the Liberia space, the Liberia picks it up. So privatizing the navigation system is not always the situation, right?
Yeah,
It has to be controlled by uh, people like the Civil Aviation Authority.
yeah. For me, I think I would say absolutely not. You can I think you hit the nail on the head there. I will, with the other businesses within the airport, whether it's the security in and out, you can privatize that. But the navigational system, that is a national security threat. You do not. That's something you want to keep wide. You want to keep your eyes on. You do not want to privatize such thing. Uh, that is, you don't want to privatize your port. You don't want to privatize your navigational your
No,
flight
you
navigation
can
system.
the airport
I
can be
think
under the airport itself can be under the services rendered at the airport can be under private management to the extent that you can even do a bill operate a PPP, a private public-private partnership situation with the airport to draw more money. The airport itself, the structure, right, the land, the structure, everything can be owned by, of course, obviously owned by government, but the services, the different services, the airlines, the ticketing system, the other stuff can be private
yeah,
privatized.
I meant the navigational system and the security in and out of the airplane, in and out of the airport. Those are
That
two
security
things.
system is controlled should be controlled by a government entity. It should be
Right,
controlled
that's what I'm saying.
in Liberia case. It's supposed to be controlled by the civil aviation.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So the navigational systems, you don't want to privatize it.
Yeah, you don't want to
Neither do you want
privatize.
to privatize the security in and out of the airport. These are key national security things. You want to know who's coming in and out of your country. You want the report should be on the president. I don't know however else they report to him how often. It should be something that he's aware of. He should know who's in and out of the country, who's suspected, who's not suspected. All of those things. Those are not things you want to privatize. So I will. That's how I will um,
When I was
we
when I was at the airport in Ara, there was this big um, confusion between the airport itself and the civil aviation authority that who controls its security. All right, so we were able to go into a research to determine who that. But ultimately, the
there
civil
was an
aviation,
argument over that.
yeah, there was an argument because the airport has its own security. So the airport security can man
Ah,
the ground of
right.
the airport, the peripheral of the airport to man security. But when it comes to aviation security, the people that look at the baggage, that look at it, has to be the civil aviation security.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
quick, I will say this quick. So when I last time I was there, right? So and this lady that I suppose that she was you know the director at the baggage claim. That was one of the things she said because you come in, your luggages come off the conveyor belt or whatever they bring it in. They just put them in this open where people with these yellow vests just come in and people just walking in and out. Like bags were missing. Like 9 people had their stuff missing. Mine too. I was missing a bag. I came back almost a month later before they sent it back to me. Right. And that was one of the things she said. Like, hey, that was she alluded to the same argument that they want to control it, but the civil I don't know, aviation people made a contract with these people that with the yellow vest that they want employed that can just come in and out. So sometimes some of these guys can walk out with bags and stuff. So you know, you're right about that because she actually made a statement about that. She said this is
No,
why.
I don't. No, I will come to the group races of the airport. I wouldn't think people will walk away with bags. The the bags can be left by the plane based on its weight and balance system. Um, if possible, that people could remove items, but to go away with a bag, I don't think that.
Okay, so there were 9 individuals 9. And when I mean the way, again, this could be a bias for living away out of the country for so long. You bring, usually you come here, the thing keeps circling on the thing. If they take it there are people, they put it aside, you come, you pick it up. But there are people like just in and out of the airport that just come, like people going through bags that were not supposed to be there. 9 bags were missing. I wasn't the only one. There was this old lady who was on the plane. She went by herself. She and I every day for the entire 2 weeks, back and forth to Brussels, back and forth to Brussels. They
But
had
you got
no
your
idea.
bag later on, right?
Yeah, I got my bag later on. Later on, most people didn't. She didn't.
So
That's what I'm saying.
where did they track it? Where was it from? Did they tell you
I
where?
have no idea where it was.
Yeah, once you got your bag,
Right.
that means nobody made away with your bag. That means your bag was left somewhere. If your bag was at
Mine, nobody made
RIA,
away with it. Right.
because they've left my bag back as well, and they brought it back after a week.
Hmm.
They left it back. I think it was Brussels or something, and then there's another time they left my bag in New York. In fact, my bag was somebody came to collect their bag. They mistakenly gave man. That's why I suspected. I don't know, but the way it was,
Hmm.
it looks like somebody, because when we were following up the bag in New York, they because I was demanding action, so
You tracking it? They were tracking
yeah,
it.
they figured out that I think somebody, but they didn't want to tell me. But I noticed that they figured out that somebody, there was a bag here which should have been picked up, was not picked up. So I'm sure somebody picked up my bag and returned it. Nothing was touched. All my thing was intact. They brought it from New York all the way to Monroe. They brought it to me because
Wow.
I made some good noise too. Yeah, I made some good noise.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
let's talk about the SM Brussels stuff. And
Okay. So,
which
all
comment you're
right.
putting there? Somebody said something. Then you're putting comment.
I think I was trying to go through the rest of the comment, but you're right. We're running out of time. We have 14 minutes left to wrap this thing up. So I think we should, uh, as also, we should do away with this comment and get right into,
Okay, so
yeah.
SM Brussels
Mhm.
vis-a-vis the airport.
Right. So, um, I think this is probably in the Liberian social media verse. That was actually the most uh, trending topic of the day, the week actually. Everybody and their grandparents were reporting that as breaking
Everybody in the
news.
grandparents.
No, seriously, everybody was reporting that as a breaking news, and so you couldn't have missed it. And the report is that Brussels was suspending their flight to Liberia for, again, what we were talking about, field navigational purposes. You know, but initially there was another, I think, corrective statement that they will resume flight to the country, right? And as what we want to talk about, for the next 15 minutes here is that you know why are we still even having that problem? Why are we still having navigational problem? You know, uh, didn't we learn from Delta leaving I think Delta had that plane tire issues? Can we how why are we still having issues as an airport? You know, so that's I think for me that's the way I want to look at it. You know, why are we still having navigational problem? You know, and knowing that this is the biggest, probably the biggest airline in and out of Liberia, you know, we should be on their good graces. We should be on our good graces with them. You know, yeah.
So I work on the GMAP at the airport for 3 years from 2006 to 2009. So I have developed a good understanding of how airport work at Kio. Because I had to do a lot of, I used to get up at like 3 o'clock in the morning and start working from the house before I get in the car at 7 in the
Hmm.
morning to go to the airport because I was living in Cinco whilst I was, driving to the airport back and forth every day. Of course, I had other things to do in Monrovia. I had, do some work at the I was all over the place. The Freeport, work at FPRC, work at FDA, do some work with Minister of Finance.
Hmm.
So when it comes to the airport, the boiling part of the airport is the ongoing problem with the airport is it's a general reflection of what goes on in the country with leadership, with governance and things like that, right? The airport going back to 2005, 2006, not to go into the history of what happened to the airport as I know, but we were, along with the MD and other people, we were able to move the airport from from a struggling airport to something that got to a point where the airport could kind of sustain itself, right?
Hmm.
In terms of making money and expending its own money. I mean, the airport as a SOE, like the MPA, the Port Authority, or the LPRC, they're supposed to make money and then give dividend because they're owned by the government, the citizens through the government. So they're supposed to give dividend to support the budget. But the airport got to a point where they could sustain itself, and then eventually then it starts the real work to build a new runway, build a new navigational. I mean, buy new navigational equipment, runway lights and all that stuff. But unfortunately, it didn't get to that point. That point was kind of stopped in the back. So again, this was during Ellen time. This is now we are time, right? So let me demarcate the periods here.
Hmm.
Once the GMAP left the airport, everything that we put in place, because it was a excruciating process to make sure we safeguard. The first thing we had to do was to safeguard the revenues that were coming in. So the delay revenue that coming in just stuck because all kinds of things were done. Long story short, not to go into the details, but we managed to, protect the revenue where the revenue was going into the bank, right? There was a process developed around that, where
Hmm.
expenditure was being expended based on a well-defined financial system process and stuff like that. Once we could have done that, then we came to the operational side of things. Then we came to repairing because now we saw that the money, at least the late money we're getting, we could pay the salaries. The airport was running at a deficit, but we managed to switch that deficit around because you needed money to do all those things, right? So the airport now gradually started to, fix all the living quarter, repair the late airport we had there, do some little repairs here and there, which was what we call the emergency works, right? Hoping that after the emergency work, we completed the emergency work, including the FAA, the Federal Aviation Authority, had determined that the airport has 78 safety issues that we had to fix before Delta came in.
At the time.
Yes, with
Okay.
no subsidy from government, with of course, later on we got some money from the U.S. government, to buy all these different equipment and stuff. But the airport was able to we were able to form a team. It's just considered if work is people, is leadership. My friend, sometimes I used to take people and it's a set of people who were supposed to achieve this thing. I would take them somewhere, let go camp there. Sometimes at my own expense because we had to get it done.
Hmm.
Sometimes at the airport, we'll ask the managing director, he agrees, he will fund something, we'll sit down, someone will sit down there for 2 days, 3 days, we'll think. So now we'll just go to Musu Spy, I'll just collect 4, 5 person, we'll just go to Musu Spy, sit down there and plan and think that we're going to do this thing. So whatever to do all that work. So what I'm saying is that from my experience, it is leadership. And the guy they called Abraham Simon, who was the MD, who came after the other guy I met there, who came there, this guy was a change agent. And together we were able to switch things. We didn't build a big airport because that was the real work, the long-term development project, which we didn't get to, and things fell apart. But what I'm trying to say is that it's leadership. Now, the moment we left, the first thing is one of the struggle you have right now with the airport, you have the airport, the way the airport generates funds is through the coming in of planes. Okay? Because most of the charges are connected with the plane, the approach fees, the landing fees, the passenger services fee, all the different fees that are charged are based on the number of planes that come to the airport,
Mhm.
whether it's cargo planes, whether it's international flight, And right now, if you have an airport that has they has six, but I think Africa World is leaving or has left, so we have five, of which two are international, SM Brussels and Air Morocco, and three are local, regional airline, ASCA and those Kenya Airways, right? So there are five. But I remember at some point you had over 10 flights coming in. So the more the flights, the
The more money.
more the money, right? The more the flights, the more the money. But you're having only six flights and you're having all these overhead expenses. Employees, for example, has over the head, and you have to pay these people. You have to repair your navigational system. You got to do this. You have to do that. Then we build a terminal for $50,000, right? That $50,000 could have done so many other things.
50 million or
I
50,000?
mean, sorry, 50 million. Well, go 1,000, 50 million, right?
Okay.
According to the research that was done by, I won't call name, but some people at the airport, um, they needed um, less than that. But then that full package could have done other things, right? And then on the continuous basis in this administration, we should have capitalized on that. Now that we have a terminal, a beautiful terminal, we should have started to,
Upgrade the rest of the
upgrade the
things.
other
Right.
things based
Right.
on the funds. But if you add all these overhead expenses, if you add all these, all these overhead expenses, the funds, the little funds that the airport is generating will go to these expenses. And on top of that, the government now has to come and subsidize the airport.
So the question that I wanted to ask you, which
Mhm.
I think that's kind of putting us into this whole economic place. Do you think, well, first, was the airport cash flowing before you left? And do you think it is currently cash flowing? When I mean cash flowing, is this making enough, paying enough income, paying all these expenses, and being able to have a little bit of money left over, you know,
with
continually?
six airlines over a period of time and now down to five, and it's troubling. It's a difficult situation.
Right.
And some of these flights, no Brussels comes almost every day. I think Morocco come 2 or 3 times a week. But the more they come, the more. But again, it also goes to the general situation in the country, right? Because the human traffic by plane, they do a passenger analysis, say how many, the annual, the check order. Every country they have that. They check how many people come to the country. So as a result of, look, for example, Accra, you expect that too many flights will go to Accra because things are happening in Ghana, Accra, things are happening in Abidjan, that flights are going there, things are happening in Sierra Leone,
I think
that
Ghana has
people
three
want to,
airports
is a
now.
destination, right? Things are happening in Gambia, for example. In Gambia, for example, between October and the next year, March, April, the human being that can pull to Gambia, that's flights, right? That's a lot of flights, that's a lot of tourism, people spending money all in hotels, so it also depends on the general situation in the country.
So when you
What
mean general
attracts
situation,
people,
you mean from economic activities?
yeah,
What is
from an
happening?
economic activities point
Right.
of view, what
Right.
attracts people to the country? The more people want to, that place is a destination, the more people want to travel there.
Mhm.
And
I agree.
therefore, planes will be attracted to the country, right?
Mhm.
And therefore, the airport will be receiving money, and therefore, the airport will be able to expand.
Mhm.
So, from a broader economic standpoint, from a broader country perspective, the country should be able to attract a lot of human beings,
Mhm.
a lot of travelers in and out. That's the first thing. And we know all what all that contains: investment into the country, tourism into the country, sound security. Yes, we have peace. We don't have guns, but yet and still, there's little apprehension here and there. It's only around Christmas time when you have how
Influx.
many Liberians can travel. It's only around the Christmas time you have all these situations where you have influx of maybe 20,000 people going to the country,
Right.
20,000 Liberians going to the country. What is that? You're talking about back in the day, you're talking about 75,000, 125,000 passengers per year,
Mhm.
right? We were trying to track that. We moved from 75,000 passenger per year, we moved to 125 passenger per year. I don't know that statistic right now. But with 5 planes going in, I don't think that statistic is high. And when you even look on the Brussels flight, sometimes during the course of the year, sometimes it's more foreign folks that are in the plane than
Yep.
Liberian folks,
Yep.
right? Unlike, yes, our population is smaller as compared to Ghana population,
Mhm.
but the travel rate of Ghanaians or the travel rate of Sierra Leone, let's go to Sierra Leone. The travel rate of Sierra Leone is high. Okay, so of course Nigeria, you can't compare it because the human being plenty,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is that the more the activities in the country, the more the people will come. Now, during the early time, more people were coming to the country because the country was now opening. Army was there. All this situation was going on. It was being attractive and stuff like that. But not only because of Ome leaving, but after certain times, people started drawing back. Towards the end of Ellen administration, people started drawing back. We noticed that the statistics was dropping. And then when this new government came in, the statistics continued to not improve in a way that by way of the number of planes, right? Because if you're having 11 flights of up to 15, 15 flights, and now you have only five,
Mhm.
obviously you know that's passing a cut down.
Right.
Nobody, I mean, nobody should tell you it's not
I
rocket
don't.
science.
I don't think the people leaving were just, I think I don't think it was based on Mail leaving. I think when on Mail leaving, it was like a vacuum out of the country in terms of from a security standpoint, right? And I think
Even
not
from an
when they
economic
left,
standpoint. Mhm.
right? When they left, there were also a lot of organizations that left. There were also a lot of companies that pack up and left, because it sensed that whole security. And I think there's one thing you alluded to earlier in terms of people, the international partner, not trusting this government in terms of donors fatigue. I think you alluded to donor fatigue. And I always tell people this thing, right? If you go to the USAID website, you can see when Ellen was in the kind of the quantum of money she was getting, right?
Mhm.
Every year. At the end of her term, that money started deteriorating, like reducing. Like if you look at it, it looks like a hockey stick, very slow down, like right now to the point they're not getting enough, right? They're not even getting anything from their international partner, right? So it speaks to that security. I think when those people left, again, it's a confident thing. You don't have confidence in somebody, you will not give them too much money for them to do what they need to do because you don't trust their leadership ability. So I think everything factor into that, right? Um,
So
but I
for
think,
mhm.
yeah,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
complete
No,
your
go ahead.
statement. So for the implication, for SN Brussels, because we saw Air France leaving, right?
Right.
Um, Delta left some time ago during, but it was more than what you explaining. There was other things that happened.
I think they had the tire problem on the runway. I don't know if you
Yeah, they
recall.
had a
Right.
tire problem, but
Right.
not beyond the scene, there are other things that happen, politics and
Right.
other
Right.
things. But the implication for a SM Brussels to leave, that's why it was so serious, and everybody, man and pop, you were talking about it, like you say, because SM Brussels has been our darling airline during the Ebola, during the COVID, wherever SM Brussels was committed, when everybody turned their back, all the airlines turned their back on us, all the international airlines, SM Brussels, and then the Royal Air Maroc. So for SM Brussels to say that, it kind of rang a bell, and it was going to remove a lot of money from because SM Brussels comes, I would say, almost every day. It
Every
doesn't
day.
come every day. I think it comes at least 5 days a week. So that's money on the table. So for SM Brussels to even stop for 3 days, that's a lot of money off the table,
Hmm.
right? Because approach fee, turnaround fee, this other fee, that other fee that each airline pay when they land. Each airline, not Brussels, but every time you come to the plane, you come to the airport, there's fees. So you can come 2 times a day, 3 times a day, you pay those same fees. Those are income to the airport. So for SM Brussels, which is the biggest airline, which come all the times, that's where you get your biggest money from SM Brussels
Right.
from time to time.
Right.
SM
So
Brussels has been the biggest cash cow for the airport.
yeah. And I was before we even got on, I was looking at this from this standpoint.
Next to SM Brussels will be Kenya Airways and then Royal Air Rwanda. Then you have the ASCA. Then you have the Air Cote d'Ivoire.
Right. So before we came on, I was looking at it from this standpoint too, because remember I told you I lost bags in when I went there the last time. It goes to what you were saying, right? They have an actual office in Liberia.
Yeah, they
In
have
that
an office in
office, when you
Monrovia.
go in the baggage claim area, there are at least five people. There are five guys always there in the bags area. In the main office itself, there are at least two or three people there that sells you ticket.
Mhm.
That's like directly, that's jobs. Not only is that jobs, whoever owns that building, renting that office to them, that's money they're making, right? In addition to that, I think you talked to some of that. So if these people pull out, that's a vacuum.
Yeah,
Even
you
if
don't
they
you
start
don't you don't want SM Brussels pulling out. That's
right. I don't.
no.
I'm not saying they're going to pull out. If
No, I'm
even
just
if
saying
they
something. I'm just supporting
right,
what you're saying.
even
Yeah.
if they don't pull out, let's say if they cut their hours down to the number of time they come to the country down to a certain percentage or days, that's money out of those people's pocket. Those people that are employed in the office. I mean, they won't be working 5 days a week or 7 days a week anymore. That's family being impacted. And we know, in Liberian houses, when one person's working, there's an entire village behind that who's, you know, living on that paycheck, right?
Mhm.
In addition to that, when like you said, when they land, right? Those passengers that they're bringing in, there's revenues. Like every time, I think the last time we checked, it was, I think $25 for either departure, every fee for every
Yeah,
passengers that
that's the
come in.
passenger service fee.
Just the pass. That's just the
Mhm.
passenger service fee. That is not
That one is
including
not paid
everything
by
else.
the airline; it's paid by you, the traveler.
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly. So in addition to that, that's that aspect of it. The other thing that I was looking at, right, that I thought about is that, and this is how we need to be looking at it from an investor standpoint. What if a business is coming to your country to invest, let's say if they're committed to your country, that means there's a win-win for them, right? That means they, for at least on their part, you need to make sure that you're winning on that side too. Like it's benefiting you as much as benefiting them. Now, if they are being apprehensive to say, to the point that they're verbalizing that they're, making statement that, these things are happening, we could pull out, that means there is a high probability that the profit that they're making isn't worth the headache that they're facing in the country then now, right? If it was sold, let's say if they were making more money and they were having those things, they would sit down with your government official or the airport authority to say, hey, we want you to fix these things, right? But it's gotten to a point, I don't think they're making enough money anymore to say they want to continue in there. And that could be part of the problem. That's something we got to think about. Are these people making enough money for them to keep coming to this country? Or how can we better work with them to make sure that getting their return, for their on their investment for them to continue operating in this country? I would say this before I land. We're not the only country, and I always say this, from every investment activity or economic activity, we're not the only country competing. There is our neighbor Sierra Leone, there's Ivory Coast, there's Guinea that's competing for these people business. The only way that these people are going to commit to it, that's if we provide them service, they get return alpha for their investment, right? For returns for their investment. That's the only way they're going to commit to us. So we need to take these things seriously. That these people are investing heavily here, and if they investing money here, they gotta be returning. They gotta make a return on their investments. right? Or else they go seek alpha somewhere else. They go alpha meaning returns on their investment. They go seek that somewhere else. So we have to be very cognizant of that, you know. So I will leave it on that note. Right.
No, SM Brussels too. They had a a market a strategy, right? And Liberia, RIA Liberia is sit with it has some advantage. You remember back in the days during the Panam days and stuff like that, Liberia was a hub, right?
Mm,
Because the location of Liberia is such that you can move here and there. So SM Brussels also needed that because of part of their program of expanding to West Africa, right? And Africa and West Africa, I mean West Africa and Africa, greater part of Africa. So they used that Liberia experience. So Liberia was also not, you were not just coming to Liberia, Liberia was also important to them, right? Now, Liberia could be a loss leader to them because one of the things you got to think about is the insurance, right?
mm,
The airline insurance, the Liberia post, it gets high because uh, every time you hear about light going off it's like insurance. When you make anyone you make accident, you get insurance, but when you get involved in an accident, your insurance goes up, right?
mm-hmm.
It's the same way. So if the airport situation it gets risky, light is going off, navigation system having problem, then it becomes more risky to the insurers and the reinsurers to
To
keep the
continue
insurance.
insuring that plane, that line.
Yeah, so they bump the insurance up a little bit. So that's another expense. So you're talking about the paying expense. So Liberia could be a loss leader to Brussels, but because their movement around Liberia and connecting to other places, they could be making money from their other flights to other places, and Liberia is just adding impetus to that. So it's strategic for them to maintain the airline in Liberia, right? Because
Brussels.
yeah,
I listen. It is strategic.
that's
I will,
business.
I agree with you. But again, listen, plane can take off from anywhere and land anywhere, right? They can take off
I
from
know.
they can take from Sierra Leone and go to Ivory Coast. They don't have to stop in Liberia, right? Like we usually there was a time where you land in Sierra Leone and come to Liberia and then you go to Ivory Coast. If you are not doing what you're supposed to do, guess what? Somebody will step up and say, this business is competition, right? The only thing that differentiates you from your competitor is the service you provide. The same product you're selling, somebody else is selling the same product. The only way I will come to you is because you provide a better service than your competition. So if we're not doing what we're supposed to do in terms of maintaining our airport to make it this hub, strategic hub that it is, they will go somewhere else. Look at the Omega Tower. Why was the Omega Tower built in Liberia? It was the key hub of the intelligence in Africa, right? What happened right now? What do you think the key hub is right now? It's in Niger. It was in
Yeah,
Mali, but
yeah,
it's in
you're
Niger
right.
right now. So I say that to say that you could be a key hub, but if you
Mhm.
don't play your cards right, you don't maintain that, there's competition, right? Omega Tower was in Liberia. Right now, the central post is I think it was in Mali, but they're moving it was in Niger, but they're moving it to Mali right now, right? So
So I agree with you.
if we don't,
Hmm.
there's competition out there, like our next door neighbor. These are not things we should be taking lightly. Yes, we know we're important, but this is economic impact here. You know, you will have Liberian landing in Sierra Leone and taking buses to come into to Liberia, or they take in Ghana and take. It could happen if we don't do that. If we don't do that, it's the leadership.
No, so you're right, but
No, go ahead before I'll take this on. All right.
late meal important. Yeah, that one is no. Let me that thing, but let me come. The ripple effect includes medication being sent late meal, important document, etc. Researcher finding a more accessible fee site than Liberia.
Mm-hmm.
Business hampered by lack of timely goods. People are looking for ease of access. Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
mean Jackie is right. But what I wanted to
Prof
say,
is right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
you can be bringing a comment on what we wind on because we've gone more than 1 hour and 45 minutes now.
Yeah, I think that was the last one. All
So what I'm trying to say to you, you're right, but right. Look at Delta, right? Delta situation was exclusive, so direct flight to Liberia.
Hmm.
Okay, so they fly from Liberia to Atlanta, or they fly from Liberia to New York, right?
Hmm.
That's flight. They don't have that connection, right, to go from Accra. They have a different thing going on with Accra, right?
Hmm.
They fly
Hmm.
directly. Now they needed that direct flight, and the U.S. at that time, the reason one of the compelling thing that the U.S. themselves put on the floor, they needed, they didn't want to be passing through Europe and others. They needed that direct flight, right? You know, U.S. how they are, quote unquote. They needed a direct flight, so they supported the process. The TSA came in, the FAA came in. I worked with all of them, right? So, so it is easier for Delta to have said, "Hey, my friend, we ain't going by this. We're going." Air France the same way. Yeah, Air France will go through Ivory Coast and stuff like that. But that's just through Ivory Coast, Liberia and stuff like that. That's one hop. But if you look at Brussels' strategy was to cycle the area. So they were most of the Brussels flight. They don't they don't necessarily, if they're going straight to Liberia, they have to go somewhere else before they go to Brussels, right?
Why do you think is that?
That's the way they did their connectivity, so that
Because
they can rake from
you
here,
you
rake
don't
from there.
you know why? Because there is not enough passengers all the time that go to Liberia that can fill that plane. So they have to go around those countries pick up that was ensure that the plane is full at all time. So you
So
can
as
be
part,
left out.
listen, as part of their strategy, then if they're leaving Liberia out, they will have to change their strategy and reroute their flight and all that stuff, right? And tell me now, why you think all these years they are remain consistent with Liberia? That's a reason. That's a business strategy.
I want to agree, but again, as I said, the reason why they keep Liberia in the loop.
You think they love Liberia so much that they want to be
One,
in Liberia? It's a business strategy.
one, there's a lot of Liberians that go back to Liberia every day.
Mhm.
However, there's not that many Liberians that go back every day
No,
to fill up every flight that comes from
no.
Brussels to that region. This is why they make those circulation. They stop it to those other countries because other people come from Europe to those countries as well. So that ensures that the flight from Brussels to Sierra Leone to Liberia to Ivory Coast is filled at all the time or at least halfway, right? But do you think these people will risk what is it? How much was plane cost? $300 million flight plane because your navigation system messed up for because of few hundred people? No.
No, if the push come to shove, right, as we say in the Liberian parlance, if the push come to shove, they will. That's why recently they threatened to stop, and I think there's some, negotiations, some discussion that went on, to the extent that sometimes SM Brussels can decide to, pre-finance this thing, some of the things, so they can so they can be deducted from their receivables, right? Okay, so there must have been some discussion that went on that said, okay, you know what, this is, we'll fix it, we'll do this, okay, do so. There's that kind of conversation that probably went on now, but I'm not saying that if the light is going off and SM also cannot land, if the navigation system is giving trouble and it cannot land. That navigation system was built long time ago. We did some repair on it, but I think it's reached a point where some of those things now need to be, that brand new system need to be,
Upgraded. Yeah.
developed, and to the not this patch every now and then we patching it and then it breaks down. So that whole thing probably needs to be rebuilt and stuff like that. The same way with the lighting system. That whole lighting system thing needs to be, changed and stuff like that. All those things were part of the long-term development plan. Everything was in our package. There's a whole book. There's a whole book. I think I know how many pages. I know 100 pages, 150 or 200 pages. There's a whole book on the whole airport 25-year development plan over start in a period of time. So people need to revisit that book. There were two books. The one we call the emergency works, and the other one they call the long-term development stuff. When we were there, we completed the emergency work. That whole book, we back to back, we completed everything that was required in that stuff. Some of the even the prices have changed, have increased. We did rebudgeting. And then at the end of the day, the U.S. government supported us with some money, and we bought a lot of stuff. So again, the Brussels situation, like Jackie is saying here, it has a ripple effect because SM Brussels is the one that is taking most of these meals and stuff, the things she's talking about here. And Brussels pulling off is going to be a big problem. It's going to not only cause economic problem for the airport, not only cause air traffic situation for travelers because we'll be only left with Royal Air Morale that puts you into Casablanca for 10 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours sometimes will be and they
And you
I,
get a views on top of it.
I can tell you the Europeans and the Americans would not want to go through that.
Yeah.
The Americans would not want to go through that. No way. At least they can manage with the SM Brussels situation, but they don't want to go through that.
Yeah, I heard a story
16
about it
hours.
as
Sometimes
well.
I have to wait there for 16 hours. Sometimes you go in the city in Casablanca to go shopping and do all kinds of stuff. You come back, but
I've heard a
you
story
don't,
about it. And that's
yeah,
why I've
yeah, you
never
don't want to
flown
do
with
that.
them. Never,
And
never
the
flown with
terminates in New York in a way that sometimes your connecting flight is a problem, right? So, it's not something you want to go into. But again, the solution to all that is to first of all, and again, we have to conclude my concluding statement on the RIA thing.
Prof has a rebuttal to you. Yeah. Well, not a rebuttal. She has a statement. Um,
Yeah, Liberia
she
cannot
said,
be a tourist site if it is a hassle to get to the country. People
"Yep.
going to Liberia are mostly Liberian business people go to where it is profitable. We must get
Mm,
out of the idea that so many non-Liberians are queuing up to go to the country. Do not bank on the long suffering of Brussels. We need to stop focusing on Brussels and discussing ways to make RIA attractive to more airlines. Yes,
ah,
Jackie,
hallelujah." I think
you are
that,
100%
that's
correct.
that's
I mean,
that's a bucket.
you couldn't have put it any better. And some of these things that we are unraveling, they are unpackaging. You at least thank you for helping us to unravel them. You're right. Like when you talk about Liberia being a tourist site, Liberia is not a tourist site because we have not prepared a country for that. So you are 100% right. We are waiting for donor partner to come get our money to develop our own tourism when it is just something simple to do. Just make the place available. If you go to Gambia, they just build one long road to Senegambia. That other road are passing that going through the places is so gricky. But yeah, even the place that people go to say they go see the alligators, you passing through the place, just like you passing through West Point, then you get to that place. That place make a lot of money. It is not rocket science. It could be as easy. Say, for example, if you develop Cape Man as a tourist spot, right? Cape Man is already ready. What you need to do, the road that starts from the road that goes to Borasa, just make sure you face that stripe of road that goes
That
into
road
Cape
is
Man,
bad. When I mean bad,
right? The road that go into
hey,
Ramapo itself, then the road that goes from the other end of the beach to the other side, just face that L.
that
And
road is
once
bad.
you face that T, do brochures and put it out there. Let people market the place. The where people will go do surfing, they will go do all kind of stuff. Before you go low, all the hotels will start cleaning up, people will start giving their private home up. It's the same thing that happened in Gambia. People will start giving a private home up for Airbnb and different studios. Things with restaurants will start screaming up all in Robertsport. But
But
just by itself. But again, every time we wait for the donor partner to give us money to do steady. When they give 500,000 do steady, they just say do the steady, carry the money back. And we don't take moves. So people are going to again, like you say, money don't go to bad places, right?
mm,
Money don't go after bad stuff. Money go after profitable areas. So that's why, in fact, when we did the investment climate review, you'll see that some companies would prefer to go to Accra or somewhere else or go to Africa to produce and then export it to Liberia, right? So we couldn't have said it better. The way when you come to do not bank on the long suffering of Brussels, yeah, you're right. Because when I work at the airport, I think when I got there, we have 3 airlines coming in, right? And a few cargo planes coming here and there. By the time we're leaving, we had more than 10 flights coming in, right? More than 10 flights coming in, a competition for the space. So, like you said, you're right. If they develop the place where they make it fine, the airplanes will come in. But again,
And
it's a
and
general
I
economic situation.
I too agree with Prof. I think everything she said here is exactly where, maybe I think she's right, because I think we've been kind of distracted about what is happening as opposed to looking at it from a solution standpoint. And I think that's what her last statement is saying, right? That's what we should be looking at, and that's what I keep saying. Like this competition, like your competition make you better. If you're looking at Sierra Leone, Guinea, like you said, Senegambia, that should make you want to improve your airport to the point that you're competing with them. Not, hey, because we're strategic, they can't leave, but we should be looking at solution how to compete regionally. I always say this: we are in a competition, whether it is cold competition, subtle or not. Regionally, you are competing for the same investment dollars, the same tourist people. We're competing for everything. Like you made a statement about a comment about the road to Bold Waterside. I traveled that road from Corway to Sierra Leone. That was the slowest speed we've on that road. The slowest speed we've gone for the entire trip in Cape Mount. When I mean to the point where we get to some place, and this is where these what's that oil company, that palm oil company, you can see the beautiful plantation of the palm trees, but the road, like you got to slow down. If not, you will get it. You might risk running into. And some place it narrows. That if another car is coming, you got to wait there, let the other person pass
The
before you go.
Bamagida Highway.
I don't know if that's what it called. But it goes through Corway all the way to Bold Waterside, to the Sierra Leone border, which is the Bold
Yeah, that
Waterside.
is Bamagida Highway.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
From Douala, you come all the way, then you turn left to.
Exactly. So you go through Douala, you go through
Well, that road
Kema.
has gotten bad. That road used to be good.
Well, it was. I was just there last year, and we drove through it to Bold Waterside itself,
So no, but
right?
coming
So
back to Jackie's point, like we're saying, right? Jackie just packaged it into one statement. Like we're saying, it goes like you, Gabriel, you were talking about. We're in a committee of competition, right?
competition, right?
Ghana has taken a lot of things from our plate, things that we,
We're
so
not even competing with Ghana right now.
yeah,
They are light years ahead of us.
it has to do with the general situation in the country. How does your country attract people to the to the country, right? Talking about investment, the investment climate, talking about companies coming in, talking about again, I will mention tourism. So when you start from there, when your country is thriving, then people will want to come and invest in your country, right? And then you wouldn't have this SM Brussels syndrome, because if SM Brussels leave now, that's it. So you have more airline. You could have even United fighting. United goes to Accra. Why you think they can come to Liberia? Air France goes to Ivory Coast. Yeah, even though Ivory Coast is a French country, but Air
I think
France
you
goes.
answer your own question. If we were so strategic,
Yes, if we're so strategic.
then those planes or the United, the other ones that goes to Ghana, they would have made us a route, like an important route.
I
But
worked in Ghana in the 90s, right? And Ghana was strategic and deliberate, very deliberate in their plans, very deliberate. And they had all their plans lined up and they executed them. I mean, they have their own problems right now, but again, their situation is such that it's built on a backbone, right?
they have what we call rich man problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're doing well. I would rather struggle with DGP at 80% debt to GDP than struggle with, yeah, I can't even put food on my table,
So
yeah.
yeah, like you said, we just, in the country, and so again, on the solution side, like I was saying, um, we need to develop the climate in the country. That spiral or to places like the airport, we need to develop the airport. We need to remove some of the constraints so that it encourages airlines to come in, and so that we don't have. I remember those times. You paid the airline couldn't bluff us. Airline couldn't bluff when we fixed the airport. The little one we had, the airlines were not bluffing. Right now, it's tough. So
You
again,
know,
yeah, thank you, Jackie, for your comments. It's kind
yeah,
of
Prof.
simple.
Thank you. That was. I think that summed up our uh you know our comment or how we felt about it. I like some of this guy is calling. What's that girl that used to be on our case every time? What's her name? You now you got somebody here on your case. Albert, thank you. I feel the same way too. You know, the man from the bush, but he like to beat around the bush. Yeah, yeah.
Well, Abbott, okay, I appreciate your comment. But man, sometimes about the Liberian problem have to talk sometimes. But again, the reason why some of us sound like the way we sound is like we don't want to sound like we're beating our country. We're beating our country. We just
But
we
you
want to
can't do.
sound like trying to discuss the issues and finding solutions. So yes, I may say I may look like I'm beating around the bush with a problem, but sometimes I'm just maybe the patriotism that is in me or the love for country or whatever
Patriotism,
it
you got
is.
to be factual
But
with ourselves too. You know, we got to be
but we're
factual.
factual. We're not saying
Like
anything. It's just that
you just
sometimes the men say you just yeah, it's tough
we we've
sometimes.
we've done this for a long time to be beating around the bush, you know. And this is why I look forward to next week discussion. Seriously, I really do. I can't wait. And that to the point that I'm actually saying this right now. I look forward to it. We're gonna have a great show next week. I hope everyone that's here still here with us tune in to next week. I look forward to it. I'm going to come ready. We're going to prepare it. You know, hopefully we'll have Larry with us um, and Depo with us on Saturday. But yeah, I agree.
Okay,
I think we
so
should wrap up.
Jackie and Albert kind of like something up for us here. So yeah, but again to conclude, I think we're juggling with a lot of things in our country. Look at what we're doing with the sanction stuff, and we're joking with it. I don't know how our country will pull out of this situation. There's so much repetition and damage that we're suffering as a country. Our country is being looked at as a corrupt country. Our country is being looked at as a kleptomania country.
Mm,
We have the airport situation from time to time. We just derailing. We take 2 steps forward, then we take 20 steps backward. We have an airport that runway lights is going off. Now it's navigational system. Navigational system is what that direct the airport traffic to land and even fly. If that kind of stuff is going away, then it's going to be a big problem. We need to fix these things. It comes with leadership. You can have the kind of leadership, for example, you have at the airport, then you expect the airport to make progress. It's tough.
yeah.
So, I mean, leadership has to be excited here and, to attack the problem heads on. If not, we'll continue to go downward, the way we're going.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and I think Professor Jackie actually summed it up for us. I think that's something that we should be looking at. As I always say, we're competing for every dollar investment dollar. You know, whether you're looking at it from an image standpoint or investment climate standpoint. If you're looking at it from an image standpoint, you know those sanctions that just happened, it kind of repel people away from coming to your country. You know, your uh, solicitor general is corrupt. The the guy next to the president is corrupt, and you have your gateway. The president overseeing the gateway to your country is corrupt as well. Those are reputation and image damage that is in the press, that is out there, that we can never pull back. People will go Google those things, they will see that, right? On the larger scale, in terms of the airport, I think Prof summed it up. We need to look at solution of how we can repair those things, those problems at the airport. I think there used to be light, outages. Can you imagine your plane trying to land and it's just stuck in the air? It can't land because there's no light at the airport, right? Now we're having navigational problem. It's I think Alex alluded to this. It's a leadership problem. Not only a leadership problem, but somebody coming in who is going to be intentional and looking at this thing not just from a leadership but also from an economic standpoint as well. So um, we need to compete. We need to become, and this is something in addition to us being passive as a people. We don't compete. We see competition as somebody trying to, look at it. People frown upon competition. We need to compete. And this is what we're in right now, whether we want to believe it or not. We're competing for dollars with Sierra Leone, with Guinea, with Ivory Coast, with Ghana, right? Where there is good climate is where those people will take their money. Investors look for alpha. When I mean alpha, I mean return on their money when they invest. Wherever they can get a good return on their money is where they will go. If you have a crappy country that is struggling with airport, I don't want to be coming to invest in your country and I'm worried about what I'm going to land, my plane's going to crash or not. I don't want to be coming to your country and worried about, hey, if I have a contract dispute, there's a high chance between Alex and I, there's a high chance Alex can go to your solicitor general if it gets to that point where he can pay him behind his pocket and end up ruling, against me without even doing the investigation, right?
Mhm.
So all of those things have economic impact. I know and this is what I always say, we've been here for a long time. We're the oldest democracy on the continent. We should be light years ahead of all this country in terms of economic, education, development on every measurable indicator. But we are here talking all these countries that are only 60 years old, 57 years old, they're ahead of us, right? They're ahead of us. Obviously, there's something we've been doing wrong. So there got to be something drastic that got to happen. We got to put this country in a place where we compete. Whether it's a kid who just born yesterday, they should be in that competitive mode that I'm going to outcompete my people around me, just like that, to make us better. So I will leave it on
But,
that note.
but Gabriel, yeah, just to
Right,
piggyback on what you're saying, I know we got to close, but it's all about leadership.
right.
You have leadership at the top, of the country, which don't have the will to do these things. Look at the airport, for example. Look at the people that are there that are heading the airport. They're neither here nor there. Now, why did you fire the lady who is the technical affairs? Because she reported apparently, as I heard, um, she reported allegedly report she was the one that told the board about the navigational system.
Hmm. They fired
She
her because of that.
apparently reported the situation, and that's her work. She's the technical, she's the technical affairs deputy. So if that thing is having problem, the one is to call to action, right? Now you have somebody who is the acting head of the airport.
Hmm.
It's not a here nor there. So, and you quote unquote fire this person, and you bring additional loyalists.
Yeah.
So we're not going anywhere. That's why we say laboratory have to talk.
It not hard to it. We gotta we have to get rid of that statement that it's hard to talk. We have to talk it. We have to it hard to talk. Like as I said, I'm from the bush, so I don't beat around the bush. I don't beat around the bush. We just have to say it as it is. If you look at me for saying what I'm saying as somebody who's trying to beat down the country, or because I'm saying what I'm saying, identifying problems that should be looked at. You know, you can call me whatever names you want to call me, but I think to land this thing here, regardless of how you see us, whether we're saying is what we need to be said, we're looking for a solution to face this country. That's because we care about this country. We're
Yeah,
whether you look
I say leadership because when Abraham Simon was at the airport as the MD of the airport, he
right,
was an agent of change. He was a leader.
right,
He directed, and because of him, I was able to succeed in my work to help him bring the airport. And he looked at me as a partner, right?
hmm,
He didn't look at me as a foe. He didn't look at me because I had signature authority. I could say no to things,
hmm,
but he looked at me as a partner. And
hmm,
together, where I had to say no, I had to say no. But together,
hmm,
we led the airport into a positive direction.
right.
So that we pick up from there. But what happened? The moving politics did the moving. Myself here, I sort of stayed there 4 years. Within my 10 years, they ran me away from that.
to
I
it,
had to
to
go to
it.
leap out. They ran me away from there. For me,
Detour.
they always running me away. They ran me away from there. I had to
I'm
go,
sorry, it's not funny. It's just the way you're saying it.
you know. So
They chase you out.
the liberating would talk. You know, sometimes when somebody say, I don't want to argue about, beating about the bush and stuff like that, but the facts are the facts. The
Yeah,
problem is leadership
right.
because I've seen it work. I've seen it where it worked. I've seen it where it doesn't work.
Mm,
I saw how leadership worked from the first 4 to 5 years of Madam Salif administration. I
mm,
saw how it filtered. I saw how leadership worked at the airport that we're talking about today. I am seeing how leadership is crippling an entire country under this administration.
mm.
So I don't know what else to say. The problem at the airport is leadership, lack of leadership.
Yeah,
And until the leader himself exert and put the right
leadership.
people in the right places and hold them accountable to a performance program, it's not going to go anywhere.
Mm,
We're going to have this spiral of fear. But for us, we'll continue to highlight the issues, no matter our different style of the way we talk, the way we say it. Whether I'm fiery or I'm beating about the bush, that's the topic. Whether Gabriel is fiery and not beating about the bush, those are the issues. We'll continue to discuss them on Focus on Liberia Marketplace. Next Saturday, we'll be coming in with a different
yes.
topic. We'll be coming with some people. We hope to,
You want to tell them what we're talking about next week?
yeah, next Saturday, we'll be talking about the IMF report. And then the following Saturday, we'll be talking about the possibility of the MCC scorecard that probably will be coming up
Ah,
in November 2022. So
I love it.
we thank you. I thank you for listening. I thank for your comments, your good comments. But this is Focus on Liberia Marketplace, where we discuss all things Liberia, economics, finance, and business.
Yep.
Thank you for your support to
Yep.
everyone.
And as we always say, we are all Liberians, regardless whether you see us in on your side or not, or whatever you think we're discussing. At the end of the day, there's one common denominator: is that we're all Liberian, and every conversation is to move the needle of our democracy and our economy a little further, even if it's an inch, to move it further. So we'll leave you on that note. We're all Liberian. See you next Saturday, and thank you for staying with us.
Thank you.
Ciao.
We are Liberian. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. University of we want. Liberia. University of we want. Liberia, Liberia. Oh, your see